Peace and blessings, y'all. Welcome to episode 9 of Live with LOAHMMI. It's LOAHMMI, and I'm so glad to be back here with y'all on Spreaker.com for episode 9. It's been a while. Last time I was here, we discussed some lucid dreams, and as always, we are here to discuss metaphysics, spirituality, magic, occult sciences, and overall just getting to learn more about how to tap into your own personal power. So I'm not sure if you guys are like me, but today is the first day of Mercury Retrograde, and I'm not sure if you're feeling the shift or you're feeling any type of weird and crazy energy, but I just decided to hop on real quick and give y'all some information on how to survive this Mercury retrograde and what exactly is a Mercury retrograde anyway. For those of y'all that don't know, I'm sure you're going to hear people talk about Mercury retrogrades all the time. And now let me give you a little bit of information.
Live with LOAHMMI. Yo, it's time to get live with LOAHMMI. Yo, it's time to get live with LOAHMMI. Yo, it's time to get, all things spiritual, metaphysical knowledge is critical. I'm out here on this journey for the truth and I'ma bring it to you. We'll come together even though we're individuals. Yo, it's time to get live with LOAHMMI. Yo, get live with LOAHMMI.
Yo, peace and blessings, and welcome to episode 9 of Live with LOAHMMI. Thanks for joining me on this beautiful Thursday afternoon for episode 9, where I want to sit back and discuss Mercury Retrograde. Everybody hears about Mercury Retrogrades and they flip out. It's like, what is that? What's going on? Whatever. So if you know me and you're listening to this show, you know that this show is all about spirituality. It's all about metaphysics, astrology, occult, anything that is dealing with in spiritual studies. That's the kind of stuff I like to talk about. So Mercury retrograde is a very, very big deal to me because Mercury is my ruling planet. Now, I have told you guys this before. Go to cafeastrology.com, log on, and get yourself a free natal chart. It's completely free, and the cool thing about the natal chart is a natal chart lets you know where the planets were on the day that you were born. So you get some insight into what your ruling planet is and how the planets affect your life. So if you like astrology and you want to get some more information on yourself and your life and how the planets affect your life, you want to go to cafeastrology.com and get a free tarot reading, goodness. Get a free natal chart. Now the cool thing about it is all you got to have is your name, your city you were born, the time that you were born, and the date, of course. So go ahead and do that, so you can know how these planets and, how they affect your life. So Mercury is my ruling planet. Mercury is the planet of communications. So, which explains everything, right? Anyhow, Mercury is the planet of communication. So when Mercury goes retrograde, it seems to give the illusion that for a period of time, it is spinning backwards. And during that time, all of us here on the earth, we feel a lot of the differences, and we are affected by Mercury retrograde, whether you know it or not. Now, I know some people that don't believe in astrology or anything spiritual for that matter, and every time I bring up a retrograde, they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Whatever. What are you talking about? It don't, affect me. But I used to be that same person until I experienced my first Mercury retrograde. And when I experienced my first Mercury retrograde, I was just like, wow. You know what I'm saying? It was crazy. I was living in California, of course, and I just noticed that things got real crazy. It was just like one thing after another was happening. People was acting crazy. Traffic was backed up everywhere we went. There was always a line. Just the computers broke down. Some retrogrades can be really intense, which is why people normally hate when they hear about a Mercury retrograde. They just really hate it because it's a planet of communications, and when it's spinning backwards, it just causes delays. It causes mishaps. And I just basically wanted to talk about Mercury retrograde overall and give you guys some tips on how to survive a Mercury retrograde and just even what it is, So like I said, it's basically Mercury is the planet of communication. And so when Mercury goes retrograde, things that involve communicating normally go in a little disarray, I guess you would say. Things get a little bit out of hand. They can get a little bbit misconstrued. People are a little bit more emotional. People take things the wrong way. Mechanics, cars break down. It's not a good time to sign leases. It's a whole lot of things that come with a Mercury retrograde. So, like I said, Mercury is a planet of communication, and I would really, really encourage you guys to go out and get a natal chart done so you can see where Mercury is in your life. You know what I mean? In your and how it affects you. So, a couple of things, like I said, about Mercury retrograde. I just want to give you guys some tips on how to survive a Mercury retrograde and what you should and should not do. Okay? So I honestly believe that during a Mercury retrograde, you just need to be a little bit more patient overall with people, with things, with computers. Things are going to be just a little bit jammed up. You know what I mean? Like the internet connection is going to be slow. Things like that. Just if you have the knowledge on what a Mercury retrograde is and what things can happen during a retrograde, it'll save you a whole lot of grief. You know what I mean? So it's a good time, being that today is the first day of the retrograde, and hopefully now that you have a heads up, you can do some of these things before. But you want to definitely back up your computers, make sure you double check, get your oil changes and all that stuff. You want to get that stuff done before a Mercury retrograde. You don't want to have anybody working on your car during a Mercury retrograde. It's just not a good idea. It's just not, and people are like, why? I'm like, okay, well, let them do it and then you'll figure it out. Just honestly, I can't give you an astrological reason other than the fact that communications and things just are disrupted. He'll order the part will come late, he'll put the part on, they'll put it on wrong, you know what I mean? It's just always some flip-flop. So one thing that I found that was pretty interesting was that this Mercury retrograde is in Libra. And Libra, is definitely a sign of balance. It's about, things being fair, things being just, finding balance in your life. Things like that is what, that sign means to me. But like I said, you can go on cafeastrology.com and get a natal chart and really figure out where Mercury signs, where it lands in your life, and figure out how it will really affect you. But like I said, Mercury's retrograde in Libra, and it's basically the planet of, like I said, balance, where things are fair, making things right, a return to just even-mindedness, that's what Libra is about. So I'm not sure how this retrograde will pan out. You know what I mean? Maybe some things in your life will come around full circle. Maybe you'll be able to sit down with some people and, take another look at some things and make things right, make things just, so look out there and get some information on basically what Mercury retrograde in Libra means. I'm not an astrologist, but it's definitely a world full of information out there on Google if you go and look up some information on what Mercury retrograde means in Libra. But like I said, overall, I want to give you some tips on how to survive a Mercury retrograde. I always tell people to, like I said, be more patient with people, be watch out for emotions. I think that it's a great time to express your opinion with people, but I would really avoid any type of arguments. I wouldn't even, don't argue with people, because however you normally say something now is going to be taken a different way. You know what I mean? It's like, no, but the way you said that, right now during this Mercury retrograde, things will definitely be misconstrued. There will definitely be a lot of misconceptions and miscommunications during a retrograde. So be more patient with people. Be more direct. Try not to argue and fight with people. Just try not to, because it's just, this is the time where we'll say things that we may not mean. You know what I mean? So don't do that. Avoid arguments. Avoid that kind of stuff. Watch out for accidents. Watch out, take your time. Plan ahead. Leave early. If you got to be somewhere at 2:30, go ahead and leave at 2:00. If it normally takes you 15 minutes, add on that extra 15 minutes and just relax, take your time. I'm telling you, because a lot of accidents occur during Mercury retrogrades because people are in a rush. People are in a rush and they're not paying attention, and they're distracted, and they're stressed because they're emotional and they're in a hurry, all of that kind of stuff. Take a minute, take your time, plan ahead, which is a very key thing you want to do during the retrograde. Plan ahead. Plan ahead. Double check all of your restaurant reservations. Hopefully you're not getting married during the retrograde. Lord Jesus, I would never get married during the Mercury retrograde, because they say the things that you do during the retrograde are going to undo themselves after the retrograde, which is why it's not a good time to make commitments. Don't commit to that new job. Don't commit to that new apartment. You'll rent it, you'll move in, and you'll figure out that it's bed bug infested, or the landlord's creepy and he has a camera in your bathroom. It's like, nah, you never know though. That's the thing about retrogrades. It's just not a good time to make commitments because they will undo themselves. But like I was saying, you want to go ahead, you want to plan ahead, you want to double check those reservations, double check the flight. Oh Lord, if you're flying and you're going to go travel, expect some travel delays. Expect, some things to be delayed. That's, the only way I can put it. Expect things to be rerouted. Expect, to, like I said, plan ahead. Take that extra time, because you never know. The computers might shut down for an extra 10 minutes. So you're sitting there and, all kinds of crazy stuff happens during Mercury retrograde. So like I said, plan ahead. Be patient with people. Take your time. Double check. Recheck all of the stuff you need to check. Backup computers. That's definitely some stuff you want to do during the Mercury retrograde. And hopefully if you had to have any type of mechanical stuff done, you could have got that stuff done before the retrograde. Like I said, it's not a good time to make commitments, so it's definitely not a good time to buy a car. Don't buy a bike. Don't, if you do that, it'll be a whole lot of delay in the title. It'll just be like, it's a good time to research. The thing about a retrograde with the RE is it's a good time to read anything. There's positives to a Mercury retrograde. It's not all negative, because you can take this time and energy and go back and revisit some old things you were working on and reinvent some ideas and research buying that new car. Get the information. It's a good time to research anything, but it's not a good time to commit to anything. And if you don't have to do a whole lot of ripping and running and being out in the streets, it's not a good time to do that. Like I said, people are in a rush. People are in a hurry. They're emotional. So you want to definitely take some time. If you don't have to go places as much, if you can minimize that stuff, I would recommend that you would do it. That you take some time out and just chill out. You know what I mean? Don't do a whole lot of unnecessary stuff during the Mercury retrograde. But like I said, I would research buying a car or something like that, or even computers. It's a great time to look into buying some stuff, look into buying new equipment, look into buying new phones, but I would not make that commitment. You'll make the commitment. You'll be like, oh, I'm getting unlimited talk and text. No, you'll get your bill in the mail and you'll realize that it's not quite what you thought it was. So that's just some advice. Overall, I want to give you guys a couple of things during the Mercury retrograde. I wouldn't start a new project. I would definitely take a minute I would research. I would plan. I would, rewrite the business plan. I would rework the idea. I would do all of that stuff, but I definitely wouldn't commit to anything, during a Mercury retrograde. Like I said, it's a great time for you to research, to regroup, to reorganize, to realign your chakras, all of that kind of stuff. But like I said, be patient. Hopefully you are not getting married during the retrograde. That's crazy that I even thought about that. I would freak out if I was getting married. No hate, but I don't know. It just wouldn't be my thing. It's definitely a time to, go back and reflect on your relationship and rekindle the flames in your relationship. But I wouldn't commit to anything because it's going to undo itself after the retrograde. Go back, look back on things, all of that cool stuff. So like I said, it's not all negative. The retrograde is not just a negative thing. It's a great time for you to do some planning, some reorganization, to rewrite, revisit some old peeps, go back to look back on your life, reflect. It's a great time to do all of that stuff, but it's not a good time to start new things. And it's not a good time to make commitments and sign leases and sign, 4-year agreements and all kinds of stuff. No, don't do that. It's not a good time. If you can delay it, then delay it. Like right now, I'm looking for work, and I knew it like a couple weeks ago, I was like, shit, I'll mess around and have to start a damn job doing a damn retrograde. But see, for me, being that Mercury is my ruling planet, I've had some retrogrades that ended up being the bomb. Like, yo, I got this. It's not all bad. But, and like I said, the thing too is if you have the insight,